Last week we were covering pesticides, and we had a slide that had a couple of common pesticide LD50s. And I thought that we ought to take a moment or two to explore and demonstrate just what an LD50 is and what it means. So, the LD50 is the lethal dose that will kill 50% of a test population. You might ask, why LD50? Do I want to be on the bottom end of that 50%? Heck, I might even be on the LD10, and I don't want to be on the LD10. I'd rather be on the LD90. But we use LD50 in part because as the concentration of a pesticide goes up, mortality goes up, but it's not a linear curve. It's got this parabolic shape to it. Not a parabolic shape. It's got a shape to it. So when we look at the standard errors as we go towards the not killing any of the test organisms or killing all of them, those errors get really wide. It's right here at the halfway point that error tends to be the least amount. So it's the most repeatable portion of the whole curve. So that's why we report the LD50. Now, I wanted to demonstrate what the LD50 looks like for somebody my size. So, unfortunately, I've gained some winter weight since the last field season. Haven't been in a whole lot of fields since late November. So, I'm now about 80 kilograms. So, the first one that I wanted to mention was aldicarb. Aldicarb is an old. Oh, and before I start that, I want to make a couple of safety comments. One, don't ever mix pesticides when the local livestock is present. Don't do this in your home. Don't have drinks around. And have the proper personal protection equipment, which is going to be on the label. There'll be a box that has the minimum PPE required for handling, mixing, and applying a given pesticide. So, safety first, gloves, goggles, and I have short sleeves, which is a no-no for most products. Almost all labels will say a minimum of long sleeve. Shirt, shoes, and socks. All right. So where'd my aldicarb go? All right, here we go. Aldicarb. So aldicarb has an LD50 of 1 milligram per kilogram, which means for me being 80 kilograms or roughly 176 pounds, uh, zero point 0.8 grams would kill me. What does zero point 0.8 grams look like? That's what zero point 0.8 grams looks like. That's not much. That's a very tiny amount. Now, aldicarb was formulated as a product called Temic 15G. That means that there's uh, it means there is 15% active ingredient, and the G stands for granule. That's the formulation. There's a whole bunch of different formulation codes. Y'all can look them up. I think we might even have a slide on them, but we're probably not going to cover formulations in the lecture. So 15% of a granule, there's what the LD50 for Temic 15G, the formula aldicarb, looks like. Still not much. This is a dangerous skull and crossbones type product. And for that reason and a couple of others, it is no longer with us, though it was one of our best nematicides. And very good on thrips in seedling cotton and peanuts, a lot of southeast row crops. On those labels, there are going to be signal words: caution, warning, danger skull and crossbones. And that all relates to their relative toxicities. All right. Let's see here. On the slide that we had the LD50 for caffeine. Caffeine is 250 milligrams per kilogram. So for someone my size, I would need to ingest about 20,000 milligrams of caffeine to receive a LD50 dose. To put that in perspective, if anyone here is a coffee drinker, I am not. Coffee to me tastes like bitter stump water. I drink Mountain Dew Kickstart. So your energy drinks has somewhere between 50 and 90 milligrams or maybe 100 milligrams of caffeine. So that's equivalent to 0.45% of the LD50 dose. Uh, Imidacloprid, which is one of those boogeyman pesticides that is very toxic to bees. Unfortunately, it tends to move in the water. Imidacloprid has an LD50 of 450 milligrams per kilogram. I want to make sure I've got my cups in the right spot. All right. So this here is the amount of imidacloprid that would kill me. It's about it's about 30 grams of imidacloprid. All right. So back to the warning labels. So we've got caution. An oral LD50 for something that has caution on its label is about 500 plus milligrams per kilogram, or if it were to splash on your skin, it'd be 2,000 plus milligrams per kilogram. Material with warning. Here's my warning. Here's my warning. Here's warning. This would be somewhere between 50 and 500. So we've got a tenfold change up in the toxicity there. The warning is going to be 50 to 500 milligrams per kilogram oral, or 200 to 2,000 milligrams per kilogram as a dermal toxicity. Danger is going to be less than 50 and less than 200. So that Temic that had a very small amount, that got the danger skull and crossbones, signaling that this is extremely hazardous and very toxic material. Now, to put this into perspective, in this bowl, I have table salt. So don't worry, I'm not using pesticide around with the local livestock or in the house where kids are playing. This here is the amount of chlorothalonil that would be expected to kill me. So there's about 360 grams of chlorothalonil in this dish. Oh, excuse me, 306 grams of chlorothalonil. Table salt has a lower LD50 than that. Table salt would be about 200 grams of table salt, so maybe about that much. So this bowl here represents the LD50 and then some for table salt. Now, most of our products are not formulated as a granule. Most of them are formulated as a liquid. So, putting these warning labels into perspective, this is danger skull and crossbones. It's about 6 mils in there. This would be a warning, and this would be caution. This is the amount that would be expected to kill me. So, I'll make a couple of comments about this. Some of our pesticides are more toxic in one route than another. One of the products that we work with, especially in sweet corn, and we're going to touch on this next week in our corn insect pest management lecture, is lannate. Lannate is a carbamate, just like Temic, and it is got the danger skull and crossbones on its label. Now, dermally, you can practically bathe in lannate. It's got a very high LD50. It's more than 2,000 milligrams per kilogram, which would ordinarily go into the caution label. So if I'm mixing and I've got the appropriate amount of of PPE on, and some of it splashes out of the tank and lands kind of on my wrist, I can wash it off. And on those labels, there's appropriate steps to take should you be exposed to the product. Now, however, let's say that I've got the product mixed up in a tank and the pump clogs up. So I might get underneath that tractor and I'm cussing and screaming at this whatever I'm working on, and say something comes loose and stuff splashes, and because I'm cussing out the tractor, a little bit of stuff gets in me. Just like that. Oh, it's in my mouth. That 6 mils is enough lanate to kill me. That's why it gets the dangerous skull and crossbones. Just a little bit of lanate is enough. Lanate has an LD50 of 23 milligrams per kilogram. That's the active ingredient is methomyl. So methomyl is formulated into lanate. 30% of that lanate jug is methomyl. So when you calculate out the percentage and scale up to my size, just that little bit would be lethal. The other problem with a material like lanate is that it gets put out at a very high rate, at 24 fluid ounces per acre. That's 24 fluid ounces. So you can see that we have to handle a lot of a very toxic material to spray 1 acre. So I hope that helps put some of the LD50s and some of the toxicity of some of our chemicals into perspective. And I hope that you take an appreciation for the potential hazards of our chemical tools, and that you're a lot safer with them than I am in this rather uh, shoestring video here. At Carvel, we have a building dedicated to pesticide storage. Everything about the building is designed with safety in mind. The floors all have floor drains in them. The floors are recessed, which means if anything were to spill, they'd pool in that room and not just flow all over the floor. We've got an emergency shower, an emergency eye wash station, a fume hood. We've got a dedicated pesticide sink where all the material that gets washed in that rinse sink gets triple filtered before it gets sent out of the building. We double bag all of our trash, and the EHS folks, the Environment, Health, and Safety folks, come and take that waste for proper disposal. We've got PPE, we've got gloves. We wear Tyvek suits when we spray. We've got goggles. Um, it's a very good building, but you're only as safe as you are cautious. Even for a product that is relatively not toxic, if you're careless with it, it can still mess you up pretty good. Um, some products might not kill you, but there are other hazards on those labels and on the SDS sheets for those products. They might be very corrosive, they might cause skin burns or eye burns. So you got to be very careful with your products. Now, this is not lanate. I would never do a demonstration like this with such a toxic material in a building uh, or a house. This is Irish tea, and I'm not a huge fan of tea. So, hope that helps. Hope you'll have a very merry rest of your day, and I'll see you all in class.